Okay, here's where the target buildings were, and here's route training along this way. Well, 2nd Platoon had managed to they got pinned down right out in here, and when they got pinned down pretty heavily, that's when we pushed right along parallel with them, pushing across, because here's that open area where myself and Belmont and my corpsman, we took fire and kind of got pinned down right here because there's an island. Well, while we got pinned down, 2nd Platoon, that was enough fire, because they were also taking fire from this general position as well, this position, and down here, down this axis. When we took fire here and took the brunt of the fire, at least allowed them to gain fire superiority here and gain fire superiority here with the platoon, calling mortars to hit here, hit right on that building, and it went up in smoke. Well, the fire ceased here, so we were able to continue to maintain fire suppression here, continue to maintain fire here, which gave us enough oomph or enough clearance to push through the MSR, literally going from house to house, shooting move from house to house. Now, we fired up in here, and as we got closer, we took a few more shots from buildings along in here, and we did fire back. The battalion was still working on sweeping through. Now, after the mortars, after the fire ceased here, that's what actually allowed us to go up close, because this building was definitely smoking. Just to make sure, we wanted to ensure that we killed everything in that building. That's when Lieutenant Fleming said, "Hey, I'm gonna put two small HE rounds in there, and I'm gonna put 2 AT4 rounds in there," and that's exactly what they did. I stayed close into this building here where I could get eyes on. Saw his assault guys fire into those buildings, and then we pushed up. Kilo 1 had them cease fire from here, but just maintain eyes on and maintain our eyes on outboard there to allow us to push in. As soon as we pushed in towards the buildings, that's when Lima 2 finally collapsed his position here, support by fire position, and pushed in also and linked up with us to establish the outer cordon, still maintaining eyes on the tower. And literally that's where myself, and I remember talking to Gunny St. Pierre, or Staff Sergeant St. Pierre at the time, Lieutenant Autry, and we kind of just smiled because we were happy to see each other. We're like, wow, that was pretty interesting. And we continued to sweep through this complex, rounded up any casualties, and to our advantage, we'd put so much overwhelming firepower into this small complex here, keeping our fires oriented south, that some of the local innocent civilians actually gave up some of the some viable intel on where some of the insurgents were hiding out. So essentially, the locals there, the fence sitters, dimed out some of the insurgents. So we picked up 5 insurgents, and brought them back with us. So essentially, we had fire coming from here, fire coming from here, and then fire coming north of the city. And I think the fire from north of the city was a combination of, yes, there were individuals, there was a lot of those insurgents had started to fall back into the city because their essential goal is going to try to overrun the camp. But as soon as word probably got back from their little cells that the battalion was getting online and sweeping through, I think some of that tried to flush down south and push off into the desert where it's a little bit harder to find them, and they can go to ground. So some of them probably ran smack dab right into us as we were trying to move in on them. But it was definitely a time-driven situation, because we had to get through so the battalion could continue to push through. Otherwise, we would have held up battalion, and God knows what would have happened right here as another unit's pushing through.
So, to summarize, the positive things that Lieutenant Autry did as a platoon commander, can you summarize? I've noted that his coordination with the 81s beforehand allowed him to call in that fire support accurately when his lead fire team of 3 Marines was hit.
Correct.
That allowed him to gain local fire superiority, which allowed Kilo to maneuver close enough to destroy the objective
Right.
conclusively if the 81s hadn't done that already.
Correct.
Is that, and you mentioned that in your estimate is that the company commander, Lieutenant Autry, was one of your better platoon commanders.
Definitely. I made him, and when I rose first, I wrote him up as the #1 platoon commander in the company. Even killed, doesn't panic, very methodical, knows how to use his capabilities. You know, he knows battalion level weapons extremely well, very proficient at it, which is why he's in weapons company now. And he has a good solid background because he was in first LAR as a prior Marine, so he knows how to deal with heavy firepower. And with that, I mean, with the amount of fire that he was taking, getting pinned down, he was still able to command control his platoon to maintain fire back towards the enemy. And even though he was taking fire this way, he didn't fire into the city. He controlled the geometry of fires with 2 elements. He knew we were down here, and the good thing about, one thing I like about Fleming and Autry, which both of them are prior enlisted Marines, better than I've seen any other platoon commander, was they cross-talked. They cross-talked to each other. They kept me in the loop of what was going on, and they were also able to talk back towards Lima CP, especially with my 140, as shoddy as it was. They were able to get back towards Lima CP to get the mortars to fire onto that objective. At least Autry was, and that was vital. With something that complex, especially when we have battalion pushing through, and I'm bouncing back between battalion net and company net. Those two were able to maintain the company net, and I could talk to Clancy, who's Kilo 1's radio operator, if I need to get anything on what was going on the company side. So
did you decide at that time to move with Fleming's platoon because? Right,
because initially I was going to go with Fleming, and Fleming and I, initially the whole plan was we were going to be out south of the city just to get enough distance outside the city, get a good vantage point with binos, and just get eyes on and see what we were looking at as far as the objective. Doing the standard IOC leaders reconnaissance. Do a leaders reconnaissance before you go into the attack. There's nothing wrong with that, especially if it's going to be a deliberate assault. And obviously that plan went right out the window, so whatever plan that we had to do, that me and an element of Kilo 1 were going to push out there and get eyes on changed, because we were in the fight at that point. So we took the quickest avenue of approach towards the objective, which was right through route train. So to answer your question, no, I ended up not going with Lima 2. I ended up staying with Kilo 1 because we were already committed at that point.
And that's because the situation was fluid, but then you decided to go with Kilo 1 because it sounds like they really became your focus of effort.
Exactly. That's where I need to be, and it would probably wouldn't have been a smart thing to do if I said, well, hey, I need to get with Lima 2 because that's where I'm doing the leaders reconnaissance. Well, number one, you know, from here, moving out of the 440 area to get all the way down there, out in the open area, taking my radio operator just wouldn't have been a sound idea because they were already pinned down under heavy fire, and me trying to move out like that under heavy fire just to do that. There just would have been no sound reason to do that. Stay with Kilo 1, stay with the element where I know that they're going towards the objective anyway. So let's go with that and destroy the objective.
Okay. And then can you just pick up with the narrative of what happened for the rest of the 17th and the 18th?
Okay. We came back in. We finally linked up. By the time we were done with the objective here and rounded up everything and started to make our way back, the cordon over here was set in the city. They basically, Blade 6 had established a cordon throughout all of Ado Fusebo on each corner. We came back exactly the same way we went out, behind 440, back into the camp, where I honestly thought my initial assessment was we were going to reconstitute and kind of lay low for a day and reestablish and business as usual. Another company commander come in. Get back that night. Major Surfer says, "Hey, check on your guys, and then get some chow in you if you can, and then come meet me back in the COC for follow-on missions." Hey, roger that, sir. Went back over there.